You're going to ask, or should I just read off the questions?
We already started. Hello, Matthew. I really glad to hear and see you after all of these years, and I really happy to have LinkedIn as a social network, so I can connect with my colleagues from previous work, from my previous life, mostly. Here we're trying to help people, mostly in Russia and Belarus, to get into game development in current harsh economic condition. And I asking a lot of people with different opinions, with different experience to help such people. And I remembered you, and you have a lot of experience. You have a lot of interesting game development experience. So let's start from introducing yourself. What did you do? What do you do right now, etc.?
Sure. Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Matthew Church. I'm a game developer and a programmer. I went to University of Alberta in Edmonton, Canada, and that's where I got my formal education as a computer scientist. And then from there, I broke into game development through electronic arts and moved on to BioWare. I've done some serious games as well, like simulations in virtual reality. I've worked at smaller companies. I've worked on I've run my own projects, but I've also worked at big companies that have 100-person teams. And that's actually where I ran into Sergey for the first time. So it's been an interesting ride over the past 10 years. So hopefully I have some interesting insight to share about that process.
So you told that you had education in computer science. How did you get into game development? Did it right from the university, or how did you get here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I was interested in making games at a pretty young age. I started playing around with StarCraft and Warcraft. They had map editor tools, so it was easy to make your own mods or games within the game. And so at a very young age, I was already gravitating towards doing that. And there's a couple different paths you can take with game development. You can do, design work, you can do art, you can do programming, right? Those are kind of the main, but I guess there's production and people management as well as a big part of that. But at a young age, I wasn't really sure which of those three I wanted to do. I think I wanted to do design, but I realized that there wasn't a lot of formal school options for that at the time. I think now there's like Vancouver Film School, for example, and I'm sure there's other big technical schools dedicated to game design where you're located, but at the time it wasn't really as viable of an option. So I went with programming. I was always good with computers growing up. I never programmed until university. So it's definitely possible. You don't have to be born programming to get into it. But it definitely helps. I'd say university was difficult, but doable.
We share the same experience, both in a different place in Earth, because I also in 2005 I needed to choose my path in my life, and I definitely like to work in game industry, but it's wasn't in any other possibilities other than programming. There was no game designers at all in Russia, for example. Yes, we knew some people create some rules. Definitely someone paints these pixels, someone wrote the music, but there is one wide road of coding. of programming, and I started my work in game dev also through the coding, and we meet each other in same position in Electronic Arts. Yeah, it's definitely work, and I glad to hear that it was your path too. But what possibility, maybe from your point of view, do you think there is the easiest way, more easier than learning in university for 5 or maybe 6 years on programmer? What possibility to get into a video game industry?
Specifically for programmers, or in general for
in general, for any wannabe, like what's I just want to get in this beautiful industry and destroy my life, to get burned out, and this magical deadlines, etc., etc. I just want to get into this magical world.
Yeah, sure. I think nowadays there's a lot more options, for sure. There's smaller technical schools, at least where I'm from. They have these. They're more expensive and less traditional than university, but they're shorter programs, and they're more focused on games specifically. So that's certainly an option, at least around here. I think the quality of these programs can vary, so you have to do your research to figure out which ones have good graduation rates and good job rates after graduation, because not all of them are equivalent, and not all of them will teach you everything you need to know to break into the industry. And I'd say also the industry has changed quite a bit in the past decade. You can learn game engines like Unity or Unreal and have a huge step up getting into the games industry because they're so widely used. 10 years ago, there wasn't a guarantee that a company would be using an engine like that. They'd probably have their own in-house engine, and it's not like you could gain access to it before working there. So you'd be walking in and it would all be new. So I think now, because some of the tools are becoming standardized in a certain way, you can learn a lot on your own before joining a company and be ready to hit the ground running. And that's across the board for artists, designers, and programmers.
Yeah, it seems like it was like catch-22, because you can't get this proprietary tools before you can get experience with it, but you cannot get experience with it before you can get into this company. So it was much harder than nowadays, because it's much easier to start your prototyping with, for example, Unity or Unreal. There is no restrictions at all. And it's a good possibility for game designers, for example, for coders, definitely. So you can just make your own game and go to the jam, for example, or just download to the Steam or any other sources. Yeah. So we are going to next question from our Padawans, from our listeners and readers. How to maintain mentally and maintain mentality and good relationship with the team after a failed project. No offense, just statistics. No, like we know there is a lot of failed projects, and it's okay for every game designer to get their own small graveyard of ruined games. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think failure is a part of growing. And as a designer, as a programmer, whatever, if you're not failing, you're probably not trying things that are ambitious, right? and even if you are sticking with the status quo, you can still fail. If you're creating a copy of a different game, there's no guarantee of success at all. So I think in general, failure. I've learned the most about how to make games from projects that have failed. When a project is successful, and you probably understand or can speak to this too, like when I was working with FIFA is almost guaranteed to be successful because it has millions of people across the world playing it. At least when we both worked on it 10 years ago. But I felt like I wasn't really learning all that much working on these projects because everything was so heavily regulated and managed, right? You had a very strict timeline. Everything, all the design work was very restricted into, you could only do so much in a year, right? And it released and it's successful. People like it. But you don't really learn anything about making games that way. You don't push yourself. So there's definitely some trade-offs there. And then when projects do fail, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. It was like you are just an ant in the anthill, and you get your tiny piece of work, and the system is working perfectly. So you get this tiny part of work. You don't need to decide anything. You just need to do your tiny part of work, and everything is safe proof. So any part of this development can fail, but other systems will overcome it, and everything will go going fine. And you don't even have this this feeling that you did anything. Like everything is so safe, so safe proof. I don't know how to say it. It's very regulated, and it's wonderful as a business point of view. But you as an employee is not just get some new information, get some new experience, just like I doing my part of work, and that's what I'm doing. I do not understand anything what I'm doing right here.
Yeah, definitely. And I should say that it's not bad for everyone. It's a good system and a good work environment for a lot of people. It was certainly a good place to learn how to work on games for me, and a good place to build up those fundamentals and beginner skills. And I think a takeaway is like these big companies like EA are the ones that do foster a lot of new graduates, and they foster a lot of new talent, where you don't see that quite as much at smaller companies because there's only 20 people working on a game. They can't have that many new people, otherwise they put the whole project at risk, right? Because you want more experienced people, and so it's definitely not for everybody, but it does work really well for some people, and I know people who really like doing that, and nothing against them for still working there.
How to maintain mentality in such harsh condition when projects regularly fail, and how to maintain a good relationship with the same team that failed the project with you?
Yeah, like I said, failure is part of the process, and I think at a healthy studio, you'll do postmortems. You'll investigate what went wrong and what went right in the project, and study it so you can fix it for next time. And that's certainly a good part of understanding why failure happens, and doing better afterwards. Sometimes a studio can have issues, like social issues, like some people aren't getting along correctly. Some people aren't doing their job correctly. But a lot of time there's just a misunderstanding of the market and the competition, right? Because games have become so accessible to make these days, there's 10 versions of a game that are competing in the same market at most times. So understanding what you need to do to stand out in that can be difficult. And even if you do make a great game, maybe it doesn't have the marketing or it didn't get the eyes it needed to gain traction. So there's 100 different reasons something can fail. And I think in order to be healthy and stay positive about it, you just have to be truthful with yourself. You got to examine what happens and try to correct for next time, right?
Okay. It seems like we can just say that you're talking about total acceptance of this experience and learning from it. And of course, there should be some culture in this company that you can feel that you can feel their support from the company, from the other people, and you should support the company and other people. It's wonderful. It's how it should be, and there's a lot of good company that's trying to do so. But there's a bad company also, with harsh condition. Of course, was the most difficult part of each project? Is anything you regret and would fix over time in the games you worked on?
Worked on a lot of different projects, so
maybe some red line through the all of your projects, through the all of the experience, the same error, same problem, same issue you faced on almost each project.
Yeah. Okay. I'd say it's rarely technical problems that cause the largest issue. It's usually social problems, especially as teams grow in size, and some projects involve multiple studios that might be in different time zones, or there might be a language barrier or culture barrier involved. Those can be the hardest challenges, I think, to work on in games, because it's such a collaborative experience. And I've been on a lot of projects where there can be a lot of friction between two studios working on the same project. So I'd say that is probably one of the most difficult parts to get right, is how do you foster an environment where multiple studios can work together collaboratively without ego getting involved, without blaming each other, without just being able to share freely across time zones and cultures. And it's such a global project. I mean, the two of us meeting was, a great example of how collaborative and how global the industry can be, right?
Interconnection within this the globe in game industry is wonderful. It's unbelievable. It's like 10 years ago, I thought it's impossible, and right now it's just like I can write like everyone through the LinkedIn, and we can find some interconnection. We can find some point of interest with almost everyone in game industry, and it gives a lot of opportunities, and it's almost terrorize me with possibilities. Yes, it's wonderful. Yeah. Thank you. So the main issue you're talking about is misunderstanding with the global teams or with other colleagues right in your office, and I think it's very true. Yeah, what we're trying to do is to get this understanding with the people, and it's the most important idea of learning your soft skills, maybe over your hard skills. Of course, hard skills is very important. Do not underestimate it. Sure, we know it's very important, but how do you speak with people is also is very important, and
Yes.
it's the most maybe problematic point in the game industry, that there is a lot of misunderstanding can lead to horrific results in the end. Thank you. Some question about game design. After some point in development, is it highly undesirable to change the game design of the project? After which point of development you should not recommend to change the game design of the game?
Mm-hmm. I think you should always be tweaking, right? You should never be so certain or set in your ways that you're unwilling to change something. But the amount that you change should shrink drastically as you get closer to the end of the project. I think a really healthy game project has a long pre-production phase where you're trying a lot of different things. You're testing your ideas, right, to see if they work the way that you think they will. And you're gathering that feedback and you're changing. But then once you feel like you've honed in on what your game is and what is working and what isn't, I'd say when you enter full production, when you start really executing and finishing and finaling the game, you want to really narrow down those tweaks. And I think many failed game projects probably suffer from that issue where they didn't test enough stuff early, and then they start noticing problems later in development, and then you start running out of time because you have deadlines or whatever. You can't go back, right? You have commitments. So
I think it's more valuable answer rather than you should not change anything after the point X. No, it's a great idea that you can change, you can tweak almost everything in any point, but you should narrow this down to shrink it to not broke everything you already make. Okay, okay. Short question. It can be rude. It can be harsh. It's Russian juniors. They can be very straightforward. Anthem. What went wrong? Mm-hmm. What's wrong with the Anthem?
Yeah, I think. Was it Jason Schreier put out an article on Kotaku, I think shortly after the launch of Anthem, that I think did a pretty good job of capturing some of the main issues with the project. And same with the article that was published about Mass Effect 2. He has some very good ins at BioWare that feed him lots of good information about the project. So it's great that a journalist can look in and examine the projects like that, even though it might not be an opportune time to release those kind of criticisms about a project. But for Anthem, I would say it falls into the category of the last question where I was saying a lot of problems in projects can come from not testing your ideas early enough and not figuring out the problems before entering full production and then having commitments and having to final it. I think the biggest problem with Anthem and to some degree Mass Effect as well is that the ideation phase, the phase where they were trying to figure out what the game would be, was really long, and they tried a lot of things, but a lot of that work didn't end up in the final product. And then they were wrangled in by management. They said, hey, we have to make a game. And now you only have, a year or two to figure this out. And a lot of the work that they spent creating different systems or trying new things didn't pan out. And now you have to kind of squish it in and figure it out in a year or two. So I'd say that was probably one of the bigger issues on those projects, was that they took some bets early to try new technology, to try new things, and some of those bets didn't end up in the final product, and then they ran out of time to ship it.
Yeah, we understand that in game development we always faced with very short time to make this game. But I trying to understand your answer. Is there a problem in some bad assumption that wasn't tested in the right moment, or is it the problem in confidence, for example, in some management, some estimation?
Yeah, I think for both of those projects, it wasn't necessarily overconfidence. It was being done by a very competent team, and that had past successes to build off of. I think part of the problem is they were given lots of time to figure out what they wanted to do, until a certain point where now you have to lock it in, and that transitioning between those two states can be difficult. And the people who are good at the first state aren't necessarily good at the second state, right? Sometimes the people who are good at coming up with fun ideas or testing things aren't great at finishing and finaling those ideas and cutting things, to make a narrow product that they know is going to work. I hope that kind of answers that question.
Yeah. I think I understand this. It can be also the problem of inertia of thinking. So people just do not get this point where they should lock something and do not change, and just accept this, that the game, the product they are doing will not the same as it should be in the dreams, for example. Just accept. We should go just move on and do not stuck on this, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Seems that we have some understanding, and it's wonderful. So there is a very big question. I just read it. It is a very sad time for Russian game dev for now, especially for a junior specialist. Is there any chance for find a remote job in foreign game dev company for junior game designer from Russia, Belarus, Ukraine, or other post-Soviet country? Do middle specialists have more chances? I think the obvious question, yes, there is a lot of possibilities, but let's think of it a bit more.
Yeah, I think juniors, regardless of where you are, always have a harder time breaking into the industry because fewer people are willing to take chance and to foster juniors. Those big companies tend to do it more, and they have better tracks for integrating in as a junior, through your school or just applying on your own to associate positions or co-op positions. I don't know specifically if I can speak to like the state of being a Russian game developer. I don't have an experience being in that situation.
Yeah, you should think about your experience. We definitely understand situation in Russian game dev or post-Soviet game dev territory is much better. But I'm very glad to hear that there is a widespread problem for juniors. It's just not just in Russia, for example. It's sad, but it's somehow heartwarming. Like it's everywhere the same problem. Like it's how life it is. Yeah. Okay. So I think we've done with this question. For work in English speaking company, is fluent English required, or will writing English be enough? Writing English, I suppose it's like Google Translate writing skills, for example.
I see. Right. I think in general, communication is such an important skill. When you're working on games, you need to be able to communicate effectively, to understand what people are saying, but also to speak your ideas coherently. So I think those are some of those soft skills we were talking about. If you are working with a company whose primary language is English, right? You'll want to be able to communicate effectively, I think, to be able to do your job optimally and to be able to build relationships with your coworkers, which are all very important to a good experience, right? That being said, I've worked with plenty of people who English is their second language, right? And they don't speak entirely fluently, but they still are successful at these companies. So I think it really depends on what your role is and what the company is and how important your ability to communicate is in your role, right? If you're buffered by a team lead who can almost interpret for you, right, then maybe that's a situation where you don't need to be as fluent, right?
And I also would add this idea that there is not only language problem, language task. You need to understand the culture of your coworker, like to understand how what gestures they use, what themes are appropriate from them. For them or not, what was the risky questions, what etc. It's a very cultural thing, and of course I do not face any person who would like to harm the relationship with their coworkers, but I faced a lot of situations where was the same misunderstanding with people from different cultures, maybe not harmful, but a lot of awkward situation where was given from two other cultures, and there was like a total face palm, and it's always wonderful to remember all of this awkward situation, just like I need to write a book about it. Yeah. Yes, sure. It's a wonderful idea, and of course, you just need to have some interest in other people, their way of thinking, of speaking, of culture, of television, etc., to understand what's going on in this company, in this group of people, with your coworkers, I think. And it will be honest if you just move to your coworkers rather than trying to make them understand you and your unmovable position, for example. Yeah. Okay. Next difficult question. If in your company there are remote employees from Russia or Belarus, have you faced any issues after February 2022?
I think I'm not sure specifically. One, because I don't work in hiring, so I'm not sure how that has impacted things. And I also don't operate at a level where I see a lot of visibility on that. So, but I think in general, after February 2022, countries implemented boycotts, and I think that makes it hard to do business. So I think that's probably the biggest factor affecting people. And I think those measures target companies, not individuals specifically. So I think that's the focus to highlight, is that it's likely Russian and Belarusian companies are being targeted, not individuals.
It seems fair enough, and it's understandable. So. It's next question is more awkward than previous. Let's move on. Can we say that the Russian or Belarusian developers are cancelled after February 2022?
By canceled, just to make sure we're talking about the same thing, you mean there's a general public disinterest or negativity surrounding Russian or Belarusian developers?
Let's discuss it because we are most of game developers are not really politically active person, and they just want to make, say, games, for example.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of questions. How do the people in game dev, how do the people in Western or Eastern other foreign countries see us at this moment? What can you say about this? What is your perspective of view? What is your coworkers? What is the view of your government, for example?
Yeah. I'll use an example of a Russian game that's getting a lot of attention and a lot of positive attention. Is it Atomic Heart? Is that the? Yeah, that's, as far as I understand, being developed by a Russian game company, and I haven't seen a lot of negativity surrounding it. I think people don't attribute the situation that's going on to Russian developers, and I don't think it really impacts it, but I don't have a great visibility of the problem, right? I don't worry about it too much. I don't think too much about boycotting, or I don't hold any negative feelings towards Russian game developers, and I hope other people don't either.
It's more like one of the worries rather than definite problems. Like I have no I have no personal attack on me or anything, or like let's boycott their games. Like, no, we understand it's a big politics, and it's hard to not see it definitely from the perspective of Russian or Belarusian citizen, but it's not seems like it's some from point of view from one person to another. It's more like government issues, like some. Yeah. Okay. We have a very productive talking, and we have some spare time. Could you tell us some funny story about big AAA development, like to understand that the big company issues are the same as the small company issues, and maybe even worse and much more funnier, awkwarder, stupider, like something that would not destroy your public image, of course, or not connect with your non-disclosure agreement. Something funny and not too harmful for you.
Something funny that I can talk about.
It's a game industry. We are very serious guys. We are not funny at all. No funny. Funny is forbidden in our country. Yeah, sure.
I think probably the biggest takeaway is Christmas parties always get a little bit sloppy. Meaning people tend to get quite drunk at Christmas parties, and those are usually where the funniest moments happen with your coworkers. And I think that, bigger and smaller companies all have this happen too. But never skip an opportunity to socialize with your coworkers when you're a little bit drunk. You can resolve a lot of problems because people's filters go away and you can have honest discussions about things. So I really think that kind of bleeds into some advice to, make sure to build good relationships with your coworkers, even if it's over a beer.
Most definitely is some wonderful soft skill to drink enough to have this honest conversation with your colleagues, but to not be this guy who who's the most drunk at the party and who will be ashamed the next year, and who will be the most iconic drunk coworker, and like, hey, it's a Ben from this party, from this our meeting. Do you remember him? Sure. And Ben's this like, I just was on my medication. It's not the point. And yes, yeah, sure. I'm not drinking for a couple of years, but it's very important to socialize with your coworkers. You are not obliged to drink, for example, but it's very, very, very important to socialize, to go for some not formal activities, to talk with your colleagues, coworkers, to understand them as not only some part of the mechanism, but also as a people with their interest, with their differences, etc. And about differences, I also remembered that we are talking about mosaic idea in I called it kaleidoscope, but you fixed it to a mosaic idea, and I heard it from you when we was at your home drinking beer, and I was really interested in this idea because, like, there is idea of politically correctness in USA, for example, or friendship of nations in Soviet Russia and post or just some idea of there is no like nations in Russia for this moment, like everyone is not Russian but Russianin, and it's an interesting idea, but it's not seems that it's working, and there's a lot of criticism for both of these ideas from Russia and USA, from Europic tolerance, and I was interested of this mosaic idea from Canada. Can you explain it for our listeners, our readers? It's very interesting. It's astonishing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the best way to talk about the mosaic cultural approach that Canada takes is to compare it with the American approach of the melting pot, right? The idea being in America, you're supposed to become American, right? And it's talking about this idea that you leave parts of your other country behind to become more American. In Canada, at least the way I was taught growing up, was that we follow a mosaic, which means we accept other cultures and we ask them to bring the best parts of their culture with them. Because those parts of the culture are going to enrich our country as it is. We're like a nation of many cultures. There are some upsides and some downsides. I think in general, it leads to a country where you don't have as strong of a national identity as you might otherwise, because your national identity is tied to many identities, right, in many cultures. But maybe that's not such a bad thing either, right? If you're not very nationalistic, maybe you're not going to want to fight other countries or assert that identity on other people, right? So there's certainly ups and downs to everything, but I think it's a really good approach to building a peaceful and collaborative society, and it seems to be working fairly well for Canada so far. So we'll see.
It seems a very beautiful idea, and it seems that it's also working idea. And I hope the best for the Canada, and I hope we will learn from your country. And I think we almost done here. It's that's the very good part of English language at all, because it's very compact rather than Russian, for example, or rather than German. Much more compact, and we are done right here. And I'll give you some time to tell something you need to tell for our novices, for our Padawans, listeners, viewers. What do you want to say? Something hopeful, I suppose, in these dark times.
Yeah, I think the best advice I could give to someone looking to break into games right now is to follow what you enjoy doing, right? So if there's a game that you like playing and that's inspired you to want to make games, start by trying to make mods for it, right? Start changing it or tweaking that game, sharing it, getting feedback about that. I think the best thing you could do when you're getting started is just to try and make games. You don't need permission to do it. Just start doing it. And as long as you're kind of following your own interests that way, you're going to be able to find a place. There's so many games being made these days, so many companies. If you follow that kind of passion, you're going to be able to find a puzzle that you'll fit into, and you're going to be able to bring a lot of value to that company, and you're going to be able to break into the industry. So I think that's probably some parting advice I would leave for your Padawans.
And it's a main idea trying to give to people that you should follow your high dream. Of course, it's a bumpy road. It's a very dark age. It's not easy for junior. It's not easy for anyone. It's harmful. It's painful. It's etc. But it's worth so. And you should not thinking about what you can do right now with your skills or with your background, but rather to think what you can achieve, what you want to do in your next 20, 30 years, maybe. Like it's a big road. It's a marathon rather than a short run for a couple of years. You just have some patience. Have some patience and passion, and it will do in some time. And yes, just follow your dream, but you should also work for it for sure, and you need to learn from it. And yeah, thank you very much, Matthew. I'm really happy that you answered for my call, and I hope after we will translate your answers for our viewers, then they can ask some questions through me, so I can personal message you, and you will answer them. And maybe in some time we will get so many questions for you that we will make some part 2. Matthew returns. The dark night rises. Matthew Church returns. Origins. Yes, sure. Thank you very much. And I hope you a wonderful day. So it's the start of the Sunday. It's at your point, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's end of the Sunday at St. Petersburg, and I'm just going to sleep, for example, maybe. Yeah. I need to walk tomorrow. Yeah. Thank you very much, and thank you everyone who listened us and who see us, and we will try to get into game industry as fast as and as pleasurable as it can be, maybe. Thank you very much. See ya, Matthew. Stay in touch. We can connect through the LinkedIn, through the Telegram. If you need something from us, just ask. We will try to help.
All right, great. Yeah, stay safe, everyone.
Yeah, see ya.
See ya.
Bye.